Your family relationships are in your mind. When you close your eyes, your family disappears. Where do they go? Nowhere, but doing this exercise helps you to recognize that your relatives exist as thoughts in your mind. If the focus of your inner dialogue about your family members is on what they're doing that's wrong, then that's precisely how your relationship with them will be experienced. If your inner speech centers on what's annoying about them, then that's what you'll notice. As much as you're inclined to blame them for your annoyance, it's yours, and it's coming from your thoughts. If you make a decision to put your inner attention, your life energy, on something quite different, your relationship will change. In your thoughts, where your family relationships exist, you'll no longer be annoyed, angry, hurt, or depressed. If in your mind you're thinking, my intention is to be authentic and peaceful with this relative, then that's what you'll experience, even if that relative continues to be exactly the way he or she has always been. Changing your mind is really changing your relationships. Being authentic and peaceful with your relatives is only a thought away. You can learn to change your thoughts by intending to create authentic and peaceful feelings within yourself. No one is capable of making you upset without your consent, and you've given your consent too frequently in the past. When you begin practicing the intention to be authentic and peaceful, you withdraw your consent to be in the lower energy. You connect to peace itself and decide to bring peace to your relatives, thereby immediately gaining the power to change the energy of family gatherings. Prior to my waking up to the power of intention, family visits were events that caused me consternation because of the attitudes and behavior of some of my wife's relatives. I'd prepare for a Sunday afternoon family visit by getting anxious and upset over what I anticipated to be a fretful, lousy experience, and I seldom disappointed myself. I'd focus my thoughts on what I didn't like, and I defined my relationship with my in-laws in this manner. Gradually, as I began to understand the power of intention and left my ego behind, I substituted kindness, receptivity, love, and even beauty for my former annoyed and angry assessments. Before family get-togethers, I'd remind myself that I'm what I choose to be in any and all circumstances, and I chose to be authentically peaceful and have a good time. In response to something that used to annoy me, I'd now say to my mother-in-law in a loving way, "I never thought of it that way. Tell me more." In response to what I previously considered to be an ignorant comment, I'd respond, "That's an interesting point of view. When did you first learn about this?" In other words, I was bringing my own intention to be in a state of peace to this encounter and was refusing to judge them. The most amazing things began to happen. I started looking forward to having these family members at our home. I began to see them as much more enlightened than I'd previously thought. I actually enjoyed our times together, and every time something came up that I'd found annoying in the past, I'd overlook it and respond with love and kindness instead. At an earlier stage of my life, expressions of racial or religious prejudice were a stimulus for my anger and resentment. Now I'd quietly respond with a kind and gentle reminder of my own opinions and simply let the matter drop. Over the years, I found that not only did the racial and religious slurs diminish to zero, but I noticed that my in-laws were expressing tolerance and even love toward minorities, as well as those who practiced religions different from their own. Although my primary intention was to stay in a state of peace, I discovered that by not joining in the low energies of my in-laws, not only was the entire family more peaceful, but many enjoyable and even enlightening conversations developed. I had as much to learn from my in-laws as I had to teach. Even when I disagreed vehemently with a judgment directed at me, if I remembered my intention to have a peaceful relationship with them, I was able to do just that. No longer did I think about what I disliked, or what was missing, or what always had been. I stayed focused on making these gatherings fun, loving, and most important to me, peaceful. And what you have to learn to do is develop an inner candle flame that never flickers, though the worst goes before you. You must know that all of the problems, all the difficulties, all the victimization that you may feel in your life, all of the strings that are being pulled by somebody else, are really things that you have allowed up until now. And now you make a recommitment to your own excellence, or your own non-victim status, if you will. Some of the categories of where people dichotomize and judge are good and bad. They try to put the whole world into what is good and what is bad based upon some perception I have. And those things that don't fit into it, the way I think they ought to be are bad, and all the things that I agree with are good. And so you find yourself going through your whole life running into half of the people or more who are doing things in a different way than you do and judging them all to be bad and therefore being their victim because they now own your emotional strings. Remember, being a victim isn't necessarily a physical thing. In fact, that's very seldom the thing because we have laws to protect each other from being physically abused by each other. It isn't as if somebody's putting you into a jail, into a cell. It is the victimization is what you experience in your mind and in your emotions. And this comes from judging, from categorizing, from compartmentalizing people and putting them into the compartments. And then when they don't fit with the behavior that you think they should exhibit, you find yourself upset and worked up and angry and hurt. It's really important to develop a quiet mind when it comes to all of this. A quiet mind is a mind that is at peace, a mind that doesn't judge. Just because you label somebody else to be something obnoxious or nasty or hurtful doesn't mean that that's what they are. That's just your judgment, and that's your definition of yourself as someone who needs to judge. So learning not to judge and unclogging your mind, if you will, of judgments and negativity and quieting your mind.
I quote from the I Am discourses. The first expression of every individual everywhere in the universe, either in spoken word, silent thought, or feeling, is I am, recognizing its own conquering divinity. The student, me, you, all of us, endeavoring to understand and apply these mighty yet simple laws must stand guard more strictly over his thoughts and expression in words or otherwise. For every time you say, I am not, I cannot, I have not, you are, whether knowingly or unknowingly, throttling that great presence within you. These words, I am. I opened up this program with the words, I am well, I am perfect health. And where do you think they came from? What do these words, I am, mean? In Exodus chapter 3, and says, Moses, Moses. And the first words that Moses says to God are, here I am. Then he said, do not draw near here, this place. Take off your sandals and for your feet, for this place where you stand is holy ground. And God speaks to Moses and says, I want you to go to the Pharaoh and I want you to free your people. And Moses is going, wait, hold on here. Who am I? And who are you? Moses says to God, who am I that I should go to the Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? So he said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Then Moses says to God, indeed, when I come to the children of Israel, and I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God says to Moses, I am that I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial to all generations. My name is I am that I am. Now, every single time that you use the words I am, you are citing the name of God right from the holiest books. And every time you say the words, I am weak, I am poor, I am unlucky, I am unhappy, I am sick, I am unable to attract into my life what you want, you are desecrating the name of God. God did not say, I will be. My name is, I hope things work out well. My name is, maybe things will show up that I wanted, but possibly not. He said, I am that I am. You must be conscious of how you use these words. I am. I am strong. I am well. I am content. Even if your senses tell you something different, I am. And as we move now into the meat of this program, you'll see that putting the words I am in front of something into your mind and imagination is a very powerful way to attract into your life. Recognizing your own divinity. I am God is not blasphemy. It is your identity.
That our words are really decrees of what it is that we want to attract and what we want to create in our life. And I find myself in doing this show for 10 years, watching how people talk and respond when they'll say something like, well, that's very difficult, And I almost always stop them and say, let's look at that word, difficult, because that becomes a decree. It's like, if you say something is going to be difficult, and then in life you're offered an option of doing something that is difficult or doing something that is easy, you're going to pick the easy choice. And for example, people will often say I'll tell them about quitting smoking, about how I quit smoking, and I made a decision to do it, when I was a very young man back in my early 20s. And they'll say, yeah, but that's very difficult, and it's very difficult to overcome addictions. And I've overcome several addictions in my life that I didn't start out believing that it was going to be difficult, because if you do, then the first time that you're tempted to go back to having a cigarette or having that drink or taking that drug or whatever, the first thing that you say to yourself is, well, I can do something that's very difficult, which is to pass by it and have to live with the consequences of wanting it and desiring it. Or I can tell myself that this is really quite easy. All I have to do is not put a cigarette in my mouth. As I was reading this, she makes this comment in this chapter on Power Through Metaphysics. She says, I suggest that you spend a day just listening to yourself. Listen to the decrees that you make so casually. Things that people say, here are some of them that I wrote down and that she had written down as well. Business is rotten. So that becomes like a decree. I've heard people say that. I have a dear friend who runs a golf driving range place, and I've heard him say so many times, business is terrible, business is terrible. When you start believing that it's the economy or that it's business, you're setting out a decree. It's literally a decree. And another is that kids today are a lost generation. So we look at the young people and we think, and we make this kind of a decree. And then every time we see a young kid doing anything, we sort of have this that we live up to. We'll never get there in this traffic. You can't trust anyone these days. It's not safe to walk in the streets. Don't touch that or you'll break it. With my luck, I'll probably, things won't work out. I've often heard people say this over and over again. Well, it's just not going to work out because with my luck, and instead of saying with my luck things are going to work out and I anticipate things are going to be great, that becomes a decree. Instead, we have these decrees about all the things that can't happen. I've never seen it fail. If I eat this, it's going to upset my stomach. I can feel a migraine coming on. They're going to rob you blind. She's a gossip. There's no point in trying, and on and on. And it's like when we think about just casually the words that come out of our mouth, and then she goes on to say, you can see the pattern. You've made the prophecies, and your attitudes govern your actions to the point where you make sure that those prophecies are fulfilled. It says, never forget, every word that you utter is a decree, whether positive or negative. When it is positive, it is manifested in good. When it's negative, only bad can follow. If your words are against someone, it's the same as condemning yourself. That person lives up or down to your expectations, at least where you are concerned. But when you speak with kindness and understanding toward others, they will return kindness and understanding to you. And when something unpleasant happens to you, don't think, I wasn't expecting that. Think instead of statements that you've made in the past that predicted and literally caused your misfortune. And this is the thing, that's what I underlined and wanted to say this morning. When something unpleasant happens to you, don't think, I wasn't really expecting that. Instead, begin to look at all of the statements that you've made in the past that have predicted and literally caused this misfortune, whatever it is that's taking place in your life. It could have been one of those idle statements like the ones that I just mentioned to you. Like every time I make an investment, I lose my shirt, or I have bad luck, or I think with my luck things aren't going to work out, and so on. And so what I want, what I'm doing for myself as well is looking at, I think we can take this, Diane, to a level that isn't just about, these sort of minor things that I'm talking about. I think we can do this with the diseases that show up in our life, with the difficulty in relationships that show up in our life, with the absence of of abundance or prosperity or funding or money that show up in our life. If we were to take and just look at all of the things that exist in our present life and ask ourselves, how many times have I uttered statements or words or had ideas that I have proclaimed and decreed, and then they've showed up in my life.
So this business about forgiveness, now, I want to tell you that whatever you got going for you in your life in the way of animosity or bitterness or anguish or pain or whatever, towards any other human being on our planet, whoever they are and what they've done, that the toxic reaction to that bitterness, it will never let go of you. That forgiveness is like the greatest motivator, if you will, in the world. Towards anyone or anything, hanging on to anything painful or hurtful and so on, I personally believe you've got to let go of. Not only do you have to let go of it, you don't have to make any phone calls, you don't have to let anybody else know that you're doing it. In your heart, you have to purify yourself in such a way that you just simply say, love is forgiving. And that's 2 words, and it's 1 word. When it's 1 word, it's love is forgiving. All right? And that's what it is. You must forgive. And it's also forgiving, so you don't ask anything back of it. After I did that, my whole life became so clear and so focused, and where I was going became so evident, and I left there and I outlined my book the following week. And let me tell you that I have never had a dream about my father since. I have never had a moment's anguish of any kind toward him or anything that he has done. In fact, I am completely at peace with him, and I send him love wherever he is. Whatever is going on in who he is and where he is and what it is, it's all fine. It's all okay. In fact, without those experiences that were the result of some of the things that he had done, my opportunity to help so many people and to create wonderful things for others, including myself, would never ever have materialized without that. And I see that, and I see the need for that, and I believe in it. And I also want to say to you, whatever you got inside of you is not the result of what anybody else puts there. It's the result of what you decide to have inside of you. Think for a minute about an orange. And when I've given this analogy many times, you take an orange and you squeeze it as hard as you can squeeze it, just, all right? And what comes out? These are easy questions, folks. Honest, don't look puzzled. Everybody passes, all right? Nobody fails tonight. What comes out is orange juice. But the question is, why, when you squeeze an orange real hard, does orange juice come out? And the answer to that is because that's what's inside. These are really easy. They get easier. All right? Now, does it matter who squeezes? Does it matter what instrument you use? Does it matter what time of the day you do it? Does it matter how you do it? When you do it? No. When you squeeze an orange, what comes out of an orange is what's inside. When you squeeze a person and put pressure on a person of any kind, and anger and hatred and stress and tension and depression come out, it isn't because of who is doing the squeezing or when they do it or how they choose to do it. It's because that's what's inside. And if you don't have it inside, it can never come out, no matter who you're living with. No matter how tough it may seem to you. And when somebody cuts you off on the freeway, and you're mad as hell and going to get even with them, and you're going to get up in front of them and slow down and make them see what it's like, it isn't because they cut you off that you're so upset. It's because that's what you carry around inside. And when you stop carrying that around inside, nothing that anybody does can upset you. No one can make a fool of you without your consent. Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can depress you. No one can make you anxious. No one can hurt your feelings. No one can make you anything other than what you allow inside. You see, my evolution has brought me to the point of understanding that each human being on our planet must take total responsibility for his own inner development, for his own inner development. And our inner development is something that we ignore a lot as we progress through this whole ladder of life. And I think of a metaphor. The metaphor is like a candle, and the candle flame that is burning inside of you, all right? Now this candle flame, if you take a candle and walk out of here this evening and you see raindrops falling, it'll blow out your candle, and the wind will blow out your candle. There's all kinds of things that are going to happen outside of you that you have absolutely no control over to blow out your candles. Your candles are getting blown out all the time. We have an inner candle flame that must never flicker, though the worst goes before us. And that's perhaps the highest place we can get to in our lives, is to understand that what our own inner development, symbolized by that candle flame, must never change, must never even flicker. It is our responsibility, not only for ourselves, but for our children as well, to raise them to believe that whatever is going on inside of you is entirely up to you. You own it. It is yours.
Your emotions are the inner experience that tell you how much of the divine energy you're summoning for the manifestation of your desires. Feelings can be measuring tools that gauge how you're doing in the manifestation process. An exceptionally positive emotional response indicates that you're summoning the divine energy of intention and allowing that energy to flow to you in a non-resistant manner. Feelings of passion, pure bliss, reverence, unmitigated optimism, unquestioned trust, and even illumination indicate that your desire to manifest success and abundance, for example, have an extremely strong pulling power from the universal source directly to you. You must learn to pay close attention to the presence of these feelings, agents which are in charge of how you clean and purify the connecting link to intention. These emotions tell you precisely how much of the life force you're summoning and how much pulling power you have going for you at that moment. Your feelings indicate how well you're attracting the energy necessary for the fulfillment of your desires. Strong feelings of despair, anxiety, blame, hate, fear, shame, and anger, they're all sending you the message that you want success and abundance, but you don't believe it's possible for you. These negative feelings are your clues to get busy and balance your desires with those of the universal mind of intention, which is the only source of that which you desire. Negative emotions tell you that your pulling power from intention is weak or even non-existent. Positive emotions tell you that you're connecting to and accessing this power of intention. Concerning abundance, one of the most effective ways to increase that pulling power from intention to you is to take the focus off of dollars and place it on creating abundant friendship, security, happiness, health, and even high energy. It's here that you begin to feel those higher emotions, which let you know that you're back in the match game with the all-creating source. As you focus on having abundant happiness, health, security, and friendships, the means for acquiring all of this will be flowing directly toward you. Money is only one of those means, and the faster your vibrational energy around abundance radiates, the more money will show up in significant amounts. These positive feelings as indicators of your pulling power for success and abundance will put you into an active mode for co-creating your intentions. I'm not suggesting that you just have to sit around and wait for everything to fall into place. I'm suggesting that by declaring, I intend to feel successful and attract prosperity, your emotional energy will shift and you'll act as if what you desire were already true. Your actions will be in harmony with the faces of intention, and you'll be provided with what you are rather than attempting to be provided with what's missing. Monitor your emotions as a guidance system for your connection to the universal mind of intention. When you're experiencing low-energy emotions of rage, anger, hatred, anxiety, despair, and the like, that's a clue that while your desires may be strong, they're completely out of sync with the field of intention. Remind yourself in these moments that you want to feel good, and see if you can activate a thought that supports your feeling good. Develop an attitude of gratitude for all that manifests into your life. Be thankful and filled with awe and appreciation, even if what you desire hasn't arrived yet. Even the darkest days of your life are to be looked on with gratitude. Everything coming from Source is on purpose. Be thankful while empowering your reconnection to that from which you and everything else originated. The energy that creates worlds and universes is within you. It works through attraction and energy. Everything vibrates. Everything has a vibratory frequency. As St. Paul once said, God is able to provide you with every blessing in abundance.
Tune to God's frequency, and you will soon know it beyond any and all doubt. Remember that your natural state is joy. You are a product of joy and love. It's natural for you to experience these feelings. You've come to believe that feeling bad, anxious, or even depressed is natural, particularly when people and events around you are in low energy modes. Remind yourself as frequently as necessary, I come from peace and joy. Anytime I'm anxious, stressed out, depressed, or fearful, I've abandoned my natural state. Make a conscious choice to select a thought that will activate good feelings. I urge you to choose your thought based exclusively on how it makes you feel rather than how popular it is or how well advertised. Ask yourself, does this new thought make me feel good? No? Well, how about this thought? Not really. Here's another. Ultimately, you'll come up with one that makes you feel good, if only temporarily. Your choice might be the thought of a beautiful sunset, the expression of the face of someone that you really love, or a thrilling experience. It's only important that it resonate within you emotionally and physically as a good feeling. Spend some time observing babies and vow to emulate their joy. You didn't come forth into this world to suffer, to be anxious, fearful, stressful, or depressed. You came from the God consciousness of joy. Just watch little babies. They've done nothing to be so happy about. They don't work, they poop in their pants, and they have no goals other than to expand and grow and explore this amazing world. They love everyone. They're completely entertained by a plastic bottle or a goofy face, and they're in a constant state of love. Yet they have no teeth, no hair, and they're pudgy and flatulent. How could they possibly be so joyful and easily pleased? Because they're still in harmony with the source that intended them here. They have no resistance to being joyful. Be like that baby you once were in terms of being joyful. You don't need a reason to be happy. Your desire to be so is sufficient. Rabindranath Tagore, one of my favorite spiritual teachers. I slept, he says, and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. It can all be joy in your inner and outer worlds. Sleep and dream of joy. And remember, above all else, you feel good, not because the world is right, but your world is right because you feel good.
You know, when we're born, a ladder, Rumi said, when you are born, a ladder is placed before you to help you to escape from this world, to teach you that you're in this world, but you're not of this world. You know, and as you're always moving toward this place of, and at the top of the ladder is this thing called divine love. And it's always a movement toward that. And many times, the rungs on that ladder are rungs that are tough, are what you call crises, you know. But in fact, they are great teachers. I haven't had alcohol in my body in 25 years. I don't look back on the days that I did drink or do drugs and so on as anything other than just tremendous teachers for me. They were probably one of the most important decisions I ever made in my life, and I was never even an alcoholic. I quit drinking because my teacher in India said, if you want to reach your highest maximum potential, you'll have to live a life of total sobriety because you're destroying brain cells when you put alcohol into your system. And you came here with big dharma. And if you want to fulfill that dharma, you have to keep your brain, you know, where it's always growing instead of where it's always deteriorating. And that was the day I just decided that I wasn't going to do that. I've been through divorce. I've been through being left. I've been through cancer. I've been through a heart attack. These are all, every single one of those, like every advance that you make in your life, is almost always preceded by some kind of a fall, some kind of a, you know, it's like when I always give the example, when I was in high school, I was on the track team. I was the high jumper on the track team. Now, I didn't jump very high because I'm white. You know, and white men don't jump. They even made a movie about it, okay? But anyway, so the way that you get over the bar is you run up to the bar as fast as you can. You get down as low as you can. And in the process of getting down low, you generate the energy to propel yourself over the bar. That's how you, and the lower you get and the faster you go, the more energy you can generate that way. You propel yourself to a higher place. That's sort of a metaphor for everything in life. If you are in a place of crisis, and you're in a place of where you're low and down and hurt, that's almost always means that you're going to have a spiritual elevation. You're going to move yourself to a higher place. That will give you the energy to propel yourself upward. And I've just always believed that
now stay in a place of gratitude for everything that comes along. And instead of, I've always said there are three ways to reach enlightenment, okay? One is enlightenment through suffering. So with enlightenment through suffering, what you do is you have a experience. Let's say you did a lot of drinking, or you were carousing, or you whatever it may be, you were sickly or whatever, and then or somebody breaks up with you and so on, and then you suffer, and oh my God, how did this happen, and why did I do that, and why did she leave me, and how could that have, and then you go through like 10 years. So that's a 10-year chunk of your life where you're suffering, and ultimately you get to this place where you finally, and almost everyone will tell you, about that crisis. When I look back on it, I realize that it was what allowed me to get to a higher place. So that's one way. The second way is enlightenment through living in the present. That is, when a crisis comes along and you find yourself upset or hurt or whatever, instead of waiting 10 more years of suffering, what you do is you stop yourself right in this moment and you say, what can I do what do I have to learn here? How can I get down on my knees and be thankful to God for this opportunity which is being presented to me, and so on. So you're taking a hold of it in the present moment, which is what I do now with any crisis that may show up in my life. Is I just say I don't have any more 10-year periods. You only get so many of those, and then it's checkout time. So it's so now it's like you get a hold of it right now and say, what do I have to learn from this? Like I've been suffering with this neck thing for 7 or 8 months, but every day I say thank you for it, and how much that it has taught me to be more compassionate toward people who live in chronic pain, for one example, and so many others, to be less judgmental, to say, to find the place within me where I can heal myself and so on. So it becomes an impetus for my growth. That's the second way to enlightenment. Now the third way to enlightenment is where you want to get to, and that's where you can get out in front of the crisis before it arrives. And you can see it coming. And you know that you can play it out you can play out the whole dialogue in advance. So that you're in an argument, whatever, with your spouse or whatever, and you know that she says something, and normally your way of reacting is, well, then, if you think, I'm going to make me wrong, then I'm going to make you wrong, and if I say this, and you play out the dialogue, if I say this, then she's going to say that, and then I'm going to say this, and then she's going to say, then I'm going to do this, and then I'm probably going to walk out, and I'm going to be pissed off for a while, and then, it's like, and you play out, but you do this instantaneously. And you stop and you say, honey, that's a good point. You're right about that. I'll really give it some thought. And it doesn't matter. You have a choice to be right or to be kind, and you just pick kind. It's just very simple. Nothing changes. She's still wrong. At least in your mind she is, or whatever. But you're free. You're free. And so you've gotten out in front of it. And you can go through life living peacefully and in grace by, instead of suffering and instead of struggling in the present moment to figure out what the problem is, you just start seeing that stuff coming, so that when you're walking down a street and across the street you see someone that might be dangerous, or this might be a situation I don't want to be in, instead of going over there, and even potentially creating some kind of, you just say, well, you know what, I just think I'll just walk around this way, and you've avoided it all. You don't even have to deal with it. You don't have to get your macho ego involved in it. You're just simply getting to a point where you can anticipate this, since there's no time in the universe anyway, then you just let the time thing go, and you just create for yourself exactly the world that you want to be. And as I've said hundreds and thousands of times, it's on my stationery, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. The world is a different world when you look at it from, like this neck thing that I have. I look at it totally differently than I would have even 10 years ago. And now it's just grace. It's just grace, and whatever it is I'm to learn from it, I'm getting.
Sounds have the power to generate your ability to attract to yourself that which you desire. 3 key words describing the principle are the title of the following section. Listen carefully to these 3 words. Sounds have power. Sounds are a powerful energy. Every sound is a vibration made of waves oscillating at a particular frequency. The frequency range of the human ear is approximately 16 to roughly 40,000 vibrations per second.
Sound is the intermediary between abstract ideas and concrete form in the material world. Sounds literally mold the abstract world of thought and spirit into shapes. In ancient ceremonial rites, words, sounds, and shapes combine to achieve certain ends. Each letter in a word signifies a sound and records the expression of a particular sound. Differing sounds were recorded for their own purposes. Sounds have an impact on us in a myriad of ways. The discordant and harassing sounds of machines, thudding, screaming, grating noises, bombard our consciousness and make it difficult to be serene and peaceful. Discordant sounds can cause internal illness or disease. But sound also has healing properties when it is harmonious and soothing. Healing takes place to the accompaniment of soothing harmonies and nature's music interspersed with spiritually nourishing silence. In addition to healing, sound is used in the creation process, which is the central concern of this seventh principle of spiritual manifestation. When we use the sounds of nature that are most consistent with the act of creation, we begin to attract the material form that we desire. Learning how to use sound is a way of harnessing its power for manifesting thought into the world of form. Manifesting is knowing how to make contact with that spiritual vibrational frequency while we are living inside a body in a materialized world. Pay attention to words and sounds because they can attract positive or negative influences into your life. Harmonious sounds are the ones that most contribute to a balanced and creative life. But before going into the actual use of meditation sounds, it is necessary to learn how to prepare yourself to use sounds in your daily meditation. You need to gain access to a method that will take you beyond the mind to a state of consciousness that transcends your thoughts. This higher state of consciousness beyond the mind is called Siddhi awareness. S-I-D-D-H-I. Siddhi awareness. Siddhi awareness, or Siddhi consciousness, is a perfect state of awareness in which there is a complete absence of doubt and no delay between the origination of a thought and its materialization into the world of form. It is an unlimited state of being in which creation occurs instantly without any time lag from thought to form. When we contemplate this state of grace, our minds challenge the idea and provide us with many reasons as to why it is impossible. Siddhi consciousness, however, has absolutely nothing to do with the mind. Let that sink in. Siddhi consciousness is beyond the mind. This state of graceful being has nothing to do with the mind, whose nature is a constant inner monologue. The mind frets continually about an unlimited number of desires that can never be adequately fulfilled. You can give your body great pleasures with booze and sex, give it fancy automobiles and delectable gourmet meals, body massages, and every other imaginable delight. The next morning, when it recovers, your mind has a new list of demands taped to your forehead, asking for more and more of what it can never get enough of. This is the nature of the mind, which is ruled by the ego. Your mind, then, is only a barrier to experiencing Siddhi consciousness, wherein you are in a state of bliss and complete acceptance, and your desires are the same as your experience of life. Your mind blocks the vision of your highest awareness. Your highest self has its own language. When your body is stilled and totally in the present, thoughts disappear. Then you can start the exquisite process of meditating with sound. It is the magic of this sound meditation that I am going to explain in the seventh principle. This is a siddha technique to take you beyond the constraints of the ego and the mind to a place within yourself where you can change your vibrational frequency through the use of sounds of creation. There's a magic to the sound of creation. As you begin to incorporate these ideas of the power of sound into your consciousness, going beyond the darkness of your mind to the light of your highest self, think about these words that open the book of John in the New Testament. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The word God has the same sound that is in virtually all of the names for the original creator. All traditions describe a creator of the Word and humankind. Here is a list of names used for the Creator. Ra, Krishna, Rama, Buddha, Adonai, Brahman, Siddha, Shiva, Jehovah, Kali Durga, Tat, Gayana, Mahanta, Mahavira, Anu, Atva, Nanak, Yahweh, God, Allah. The obvious sound that is in all of these names for the Creator is the sound Ah. Ah expresses a feeling of bliss and joy. The sounds of creation and joy are synonymous. It is not an accident that the name for the Creator in virtually all languages contains the sound ah. Ah is the only sound that humans make effortlessly, simply by taking in a breath and without moving the lips, the tongue, the jaw, or the teeth. If you move any of these, the sound changes. Ah is the sound of effortless perfection, as is creation itself effortless and perfect. Ah, the sound of creation, is one sound you will want to use as you practice the language of Siddhi consciousness. It takes you beyond the incessant self-dialogue that characterizes your mind. When you repeat the sound ah in connection with your manifestation meditation practice, you are literally repeating the name of God. Everything you need to have total happiness and fulfillment, and success and love in your life, you already have. You already have it right now. Wherever you are, whoever you are, you have it right this minute. Just a matter of deciding to believe that. A woman asked me one time, what are the blocks to my happiness? She said, what are the blocks? I want to know the blocks. I said, the belief that you have blocks. You believe you have blocks. As soon as you believe you have blocks, you create the need to have blocks. And now you want to find out what the blocks are. There are no blocks out there. If you send them all away, stop believing that you'll have blocks. Then you stop looking for the blocks, and you stop defending the blocks, and you look for something else. People tend to blame circumstances for their unhappiness. They say, someone close to me is sick, and that makes me unhappy. And I say to them, no, that doesn't make you unhappy. Someone else close to you is sick, that cannot make you unhappy. And they say, well, how is that possible? What do you mean? They're sick and I'm unhappy and they must be making me unhappy. I say, no, supposing that same person was sick and you didn't know about it. You just didn't know they were sick. Could you be unhappy? Well, of course not. How could I be unhappy about something I didn't know about? Well, they were sick. Their sickness didn't cause you to be unhappy. Their sickness existed independent of you. It's when you find out about it and process it and think about it in a certain way and you say, oh, that shouldn't be happening. Oh, that's awful. Or oh, that's my friend. Or that's my mother. Or those things shouldn't be happening to me. People don't want to take the responsibility and say, I am making myself unhappy by what I see in life. Now, you may not want to be joyful about someone close to you being sick, but you have to be responsible for what's going on inside of you. My job was to teach people how to find methods to be able to manage their emotions more effectively. I now believe that you have to be the method. Okay? There is no method that you can find. You can't rely on a method any more than if you're overweight, you can rely on a diet. Or if you're smoking, you can rely on a cure or hypnotism or some kind of thing external to yourself. Or if you want to be religious, you can't rely on someone else to do it for you. It's that being that is the big difference. I believe I was directed to help people to understand that they have greatness within them and not to fear that greatness. That the reason people are not good at getting what they want out of life is not so much that they don't have the skills or the abilities, but in fact they don't think that they deserve it. Or if they do think they deserve it, they're afraid of it because it's bigger than I am. And there's a truth out there in the universe someplace, however it works, and I'm studying this now for some books I'll be writing in the future, that says you are not going to get it all. You are it all. You are not going to find happiness. You are happiness. You bring happiness to what you do in life rather than trying to get happiness out of what you do. Big, big difference between those two premises. Because you're not searching for happiness anymore when you have it within you. I always tell people I'm not in the pleasure business. Right? I'm in the happiness business or the joy business, not in the pleasure business, even though pleasure's great. The distinction I make here is that when you become enlightened, you begin to find happiness in the absences of pleasure in your life. You can find happiness in that. You can embrace your colds, if you will, your headaches or your backaches or whatever, as opportunities. Rather than saying that if I don't have all pleasure, then I can't be happy, what you say is, I am happy even with the things that I don't like that are going on in my life right now. So you learn to find joy in those and embrace those things rather than trying to always send them away. And the suffering that you're experiencing, if you just stop right now and look at your payoffs for it and why you continue to do it, you will see that Your suffering comes from wanting the world to be different than it is, or wanting somebody in the world to be different than they are. And when you stop that, when you just accept rather than want, then your suffering has to go out the window with it. And this is not to say that you can't desire things. You don't even have to say you can't want things. You can certainly want anything. But to need it for me to be happy must go. To understand what we're talking about here, you must understand that bringing happiness to something is very much different than trying to get it out of something. And when you are bringing it to something, then you always have it. When you're looking for it, it will always elude you. Always.